It's Thursday, April the 9th, 2026, and it's time for The Swamp. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for daily updates you probably won't see in the mainstream. Every article is linked in the description, and if this video is too long, the highlight clips will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. So we're going to get things fired up with Kelly Loeffler with the Small Business Administration. We're going to start this episode with fraud. Huge win for the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force. During the Biden administration, federal contracting was widely abused as a vehicle to funnel billions of dollars to favored businesses. The handouts are over, and so is this scheme to defraud honest taxpayers. And this is going to be from the Daily Caller. They basically do a repeat of what that post said, so I'm going to skip straight past it. Matter of fact, I think I already got it open, don't I? Absolutely. So J.D. Vance's anti-fraud task force uncovers $6 billion in suspected fraudulent government contracts. Huge number. And look, dude, they're just getting started. They just formed this task force just a couple of weeks ago. Imagine what they're going to find in the coming months, especially when they start digging further into not only California and further into Minnesota, but what about New York? What about Massachusetts? Pretty much all the blue states. Are we going to uncover $1 trillion worth of fraud? It wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it surprised anybody, to be honest. So Vice President J.D. Vance's new anti-fraud task force has identified nearly $6.3 billion or $6,300 million in government contracts that are going to potentially fraudulent businesses, the Daily Caller learned early Wednesday. The task force, alongside General Services Administration, or the GSA, are beginning to send out letters to nearly 400 businesses with government contracts that they believe could be fraudulent, administration officials told the Caller. There were 895 contracts given to 392 businesses for a total of $6.3 billion, with $3 billion still left to be rewarded. The businesses will have 30 days to prove to the task force that they have a physical address and are legitimate. The letters will come from the executive director of the Anti-Fraud Task Force, Scott Brady, and GSA Administrator Edward Forst, who one senior administration official said has been instrumental in helping identify the potential fraudulent contracts. A bulk of the contracts were awarded under the Biden administration, said an official explaining that to the Caller. So the fact that these taxpayer dollars went out without verifying if the contracts and vendors were even real or lawful businesses is a disgrace, and yet another example of how the previous administration flouted basic anti-fraud guardrails, said a White House official. This task force was created shortly after YouTuber Nick Shirley exposed nearly a dozen Somali-run daycare centers in Minnesota that were not actually providing services. Yeah, Nick Shirley, he uploaded a video to YouTube. He also put it up onto his X account, and somewhere around 24 to 48 hours after he dropped that post, it received something like 130 million views just on the X platform alone. Just absolutely explosive. And that's where the whole Leering Center came from. It came from his video, of course, being up in Minneapolis. Vance and his new team convened for the first time on March 27th. Colin McDonald, the Assistant Attorney General for National Fraud Enforcement, was sworn in back on April the 1st. Quote, the Vice President's task force will leave no stone unturned in the hunt for fraud. If fraudsters are robbing hardworking Americans of their tax dollars and services, we will find them, a person for the Vice President told the Daily Caller in a statement. The Vice President previously said the task force will also be investigating Democratic Minnesota Rep. Ilhan Omar for alleged immigration fraud. So that should be music to a lot of people's ears, because people have been calling on her to be investigated. I mean, look, frankly, a lot of people are just calling for her full-on removal. They've already drawn their conclusions that she married her brother and she needs to go. I guess I'll just put it, short and lightly. So we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America, the Vice President told conservative personality Benny Johnson in an interview. And I talked to White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller about this actually recently. Yeah, I'm sure Stephen Miller would love nothing more than to see her ass get deported. We're trying to look at what the remedies are. That's the thing that we're trying to figure out, is what are the legal remedies now that we know that she's committed immigration fraud. How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you actually do the thing? How do you build the case necessary to get some justice for the American people? I don't know. You just follow the letter of the law. I don't care if she's an elected official or not. At the end of the day, I thought nobody was above the law. I thought we were all equal in the eyes of the law. Apparently not. I mean, like, not if JD Vance is talking about trying to figure out ways how to navigate the legal system to try to get her properly investigated. That's kind of fucked up. So there's a related issue, Benny, which is she has been at the center of a lot of worse fraudsters in the Somali community. And of course, that's going to be the end of that article. We are just going to rock and roll to the next because there's a few things going on with regard to fraud today. So I figured I'd lead with that. I've led with the Iran war or the Iranian conflict for like the last, week or so. So I figured I'd change things up. There is still some news coming out, especially with President Trump. He was posting to his Truth Social all day long today. So I'm not going to probably go through each and every single one, but I did grab a few that I suppose are of some importance, being that he's the president of the United States and all. All right, so FBI Director Kash Patel. Michigan man pleads guilty to defrauding Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance for nearly $2 million, with an M. FBI investigated this case with our HHS and DOJ partners as part of our nationwide fraud takedown. And of course, there is more to come. And we're going to take a look and let's see. There it is. All right. And it's going to be at Detroit News. All right. Getting rid of the X. Uh-oh. Are we not going to be able to see it? Is it freaking paywalled? Shouldn't be paywalled. Uh-oh. Yeah, you know what? It is, but that's okay because Yahoo, they did a copy and paste. So we'll just read it directly here on Yahoo. All right. President Donald Trump's administration is suing Washtenaw County. Is that how you say it? Washtenaw County authorities, accusing them of obstructing federal immigration enforcement operations. Named in the lawsuit are Washtenaw County Prosecutor Eli Savitt, Sheriff Alicia M. Dyer, and the county's Board of Commissioners in a 6-count, 53-page complaint that was filed Thursday in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan. And despite the ongoing threat that unvetted illegal aliens pose to American lives and property and the communities in which Americans reside, the county of Washtenaw through the actions... All right, hold on. I'm not so sure. I don't think that I'm on the right thing, am I? No, of course I'm not. I'm not on the right thing at all. Oh my God, this freaking episode is a train wreck so far. I'm getting a late start, so I'm trying to hustle, and I'm already making mistakes. But that's okay. We'll press on. And it doesn't look like it's paywalled. I just clicked on something else that I shouldn't have been clicking on, I guess. Dearborn Heights man pleads guilty in federal court to healthcare fraud. There we go. That's better. A Dearborn Heights man has pleaded guilty to swindling nearly $2 million from Medicare, Medicaid, and a health insurance company, officials said. That sounds more like it. All right. Rabbi Hamden entered the plea Tuesday in federal court in Detroit for conspiring to commit healthcare fraud, said Jerome Gorgon, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. A date for the 41-year-old sentencing has yet to be set, Gordon said in a statement. He also said Hamden faces up to 10 years in prison, a fine of up to $250,000, and up to 3 years of supervised release following his prison term. Hamden's attorney, Mohammed Bazi, was not immediately available for comment on Wednesday. Probably won't be ever. Authorities alleged Hamdan, who owned MedX, a pharmacy in Dearborn, created and operated a scheme to submit claims for prescription drugs that were medically unnecessary or not actually dispensed. He and his co-conspirators submitted false and fraudulent claims totaling at least $1.9 million in the 5 years between 2019 and 2024, according to investigators. FBI agents said his pharmacy didn't even have the drugs in stock to dispense them. Yet they still billed Medicare and Medicaid and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan for them in many instances. Let's see, a doctor never ordered the prescriptions in those cases, according to the authorities. Officials said the defendant used money from the scheme for his personal use and to benefit others. Federal investigators filed a criminal complaint against Hamden in February, according to court records. In it, they said state authorities received a tip that the defendant and his brother, a pharmacist, were engaged in healthcare fraud. The state's health department referred the case to the FBI, and court filings also concurred with that. Officials said MedX Pharmacy closed way back in September of 2024. Hamden's plea came the week after a Shelby Township dentist was charged with 131 counts of Medicaid fraud and a count of conducting a criminal enterprise. State officials said he billed Medicaid for dental crowns that were unnecessary or never provided. Dude, it sounds to me like there's going to be a lot of doctors and dentists, healthcare professionals, maybe even chiropractors. It sounds like there's a lot of people that are about to be going to prison. And I mean, look, I don't know what that's going to do for the medical community abroad. maybe I guess the remaining doctors that were honest, they're probably going to be able to charge a little bit extra for their services because of the freaking demand that's going to have to be met because of a major shortfall of all these freaking criminal doctors that I guess we do have in our society. I thought doctors were supposed to be, more honest than almost anybody. Apparently not, at least not in Michigan and other states, probably namely blue states. But to be fair, I'm sure there's crooked doctors in red states too. Sure, it's not so much a red or a blue thing, even though in blue states it's probably way easier to get away with this stuff. That's probably why there's so many cases coming out of blue states. All right, so let's see. Last month, a Clinton Township-based physical therapy company agreed to pay nearly $5 million to settle a federal complaint over claims it fraudulently billed government programs. In January, a former Saginaw doctor was ordered to stand trial for allegedly defrauding Medicaid. And let's rock and roll again to the next one. What do we got next? From U.S. Department of Justice, a fuel executive gets a 5-year prison sentence for defrauding U.S. military in contract bid scam. Quote, the defendant stole millions of dollars from our military with a fake job, fake identity, and fake invoices, said Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. This administration takes defrauding the American military seriously, with a prison sentence reflecting the seriousness of the crime. This is going to be on justice.gov, the Department of Justice's Office of Public Affairs. And Jason Butler, age 38, of Jupiter, Florida, of course, another Florida man, in West Palm Beach to 60 months, or was sentenced to 60 months in prison from West Palm Beach, in criminal forfeiture by U.S. District Judge Donald M. Middlebrooks. In January, a jury convicted Butler of 34 counts of wire fraud, forgery, and money laundering. 34 counts of wire fraud. So this dude's never getting out of prison. Well, I guess he is 60 months, and that's absolutely ridiculous. There were people that were getting busted with those like COVID PPP scams, defrauding the government using the stupid ass like Biden era small business loans that people would just make up a fake business, and then they ended up with like 10, 20, 30,000. There were people that were getting sentenced with only one count of wire fraud, and they were getting 10 years in prison. I saw that several times. Anyway, according to the evidence at trial, Butler, the owner of Independent Marine Oil Services, LLC, corrupted the competitive bidding process for military fuel contracts and submitted dozens of falsified documents, such as wire transfer memos and invoices to multiple U.S. warships between August 2022 and January 2024. These ships were attempting to purchase fuel in international ports in Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and Croatia to defend strategic American interests around the globe. Butler received over $4.5 million in payments for phony expenses that Butler had not incurred. After Butler came under scrutiny by Navy officials, he continued his scheme by concealing his identity from government officials. Butler adopted a false name and feigned employment by a fictitious fuel division of a different company. Butler used the millions in the proceeds of his crimes to personally enrich himself and purchase multiple multi-million-dollar properties in both Florida and Colorado. Judge Middlebrooks has entered a preliminary order of forfeiture for those properties. Well, good. Sooner the better. The defendant stole millions of dollars from our military with a fake job, fake identity, and fake invoices, said Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general. This administration takes defrauding the American military seriously, with a prison sentence reflecting the seriousness of the crime. The defendant made his choice to rip off the federal government and the Navy to line his own pockets. The Justice Department made its choice to pursue maximum incarceration for the defendant. In response, Judge Middlebrooks rightly ordered the defendant in prison for 5 years, said Acting Assistant Attorney General Omid A. Essefi of the Justice Department's Antitrust Division. The Antitrust Division and its wonderful staff have zero tolerance for those who seek to corrupt competition. I hope they recovered all the money, or at least what the amount of money that they can confirm that he hadn't spent yet. Because sometimes I wonder, when they defraud millions, let's say like 10, 20, $30 million, what if they just stashed, $2 million, $3 million? They could have stashed it in cash in some secret location. They go to prison, they do their 5-6 years, they get out, and then they just quietly disappear. And now they've, essentially, would you serve 5 years of prison if you got paid $2 million in cash at the end of the day, or $5 million, or whatever the amount might be? I sometimes wonder that if people actually do that. I guarantee they do. There's got to be people who do that. It's actually pretty despicable. But once they get out and they leave the country, especially if they're not on parole, if they do their full time. Anyway, this sentence reflects the seriousness of what the evidence at trial showed, a calculated scheme that targeted the U.S. military for personal gain, said U.S. Attorney Jason A. Redding Quinones for the Southern District of Florida. The defendant submitted false documents, stole millions of taxpayer funds, then tried to hide behind a fake identity when scrutiny began. When you defraud our armed forces, you are not just committing fraud, you are undermining operations that protect this country. That conduct will be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Today's sentencing sends a clear message. Those who defraud the U.S. military will be held accountable. Special Agent in Charge Josh Packer, U.S. Coast Guard Investigative Service, Southeast Field Office. The CGIS will continue to work with our investigative partners and the Department of Justice to identify, investigate, and hold those accountable who exploit government systems for personal gain. All right, so anyway, they've got more quotes and more quotes and more quotes. So this will be linked below if you want to finish that up on your own time. There's a list of links down below. Like I said, anything that I click on, it's going to be straight on down below. Just scroll down a little bit and you'll find them. They'll be there. Okay, so we got through that one. And from AAG, Harmeet Dillon, and she is with the Civil Rights Division, right? Yeah, the AAG for the Civil Rights Division at the Justice Department. And she's got to update her profile. AG Pam Bondi ain't there anymore, Harmeet Dillon. You got to update it to acting AG Todd Blanche. So anyway, he is saying, AG Todd Blanche, I am appointing Trent McHutter as the Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General. AAG Colin McDonald will also be helping Trent in ODAG while continuing its great work standing up for our National Fraud Enforcement Division. I want to thank both Trent and Colin for their service on behalf of President Trump. And let's see. So anyway, Harmeet Dillon, she says, great leadership team. So I don't know any of these people, like not any more than what I've heard just recently in the news. I know Todd Blanche, he's been around Trump for quite a while, representing him in court cases before he became president again in 2024. So, all right. So from Eric Daugherty, a bombshell California audit reports finds that Gavin Newsom granted licenses to likely fraudulent businesses that are stealing from taxpayers. This is insane. Gavin needs to resign. Dude, there's nothing that's going to get him to resign. It's just like Governor Walz in Minnesota. That dude should have resigned his ass off like from freaking day one. Dude still hasn't resigned. These Democrats are psychopathically obsessed with power, and they will never give up their power. Probably not even if you send in the feds to physically drag him out. He'll probably just be clawing on the floor, just digging his fingernails into the ground, just trying to keep his ass in there as long as he possibly can. Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, Assemblywoman Alexandra Macedo says the audit report also uncovered that your administration, quote, became aware of possible fraud during the licensing process, and instead of denying the license, it granted them. Either they turned a blind eye or they were asleep at the wheel and were lazy as far as the oversight goes. Probably both. I think that whatever your assumptions might be with how they handled any kind of federal funds or state funds, I would just assume that you're right. There's a lot of them who are corrupt. A lot of them are absolutely stupid as hell thanks to DEI hiring people who are completely unqualified because they have to look a certain kind of way. Anyway, speaking to the legitimate hospices are seeking victims of this exact type of fraud that now these legitimate hospices are having to foot the bill to make sure that people have end-of-life care. So we've got about a minute 20 clip
now, you said
from this
in
on
part
Fox
in
News.
your letter to Gavin Newsom. You said the audit report also uncovered that your administration, quote, became aware of possible fraud during the licensing process, and instead of denying the license, it granted licenses. I mean, is this the administration turning a blind eye to fraud as the administration of Governor Tim Walz apparently did in Minnesota?
Well, they have to admit one of two things. Either they turned a blind eye or they were asleep at the wheel and were lazy as far as the oversight goes. Speaking to legitimate hospices are seeing victims of this exact type of fraud that now these legitimate hospices are having to foot the bill to make sure that people have end-of-life care. I've had doctors reach out to me that unbeknownst to them, their medical license was being abused for the reasons of billing for hospice care. This crime involves so many victims, but what we need now is swift action and swift justice. When I first started this investigation and presented it on my social media, so many people said, look, we know this fraud has been going on, but we never see the bad guys get arrested. So I'm so grateful to people like Bill Asaley, who finally are making sure the bad guys are bringing Brock to justice. Why Rob Bonta decided to wake up this morning and do this is beyond me, but I guess I'm grateful, long overdue, but we need to continue. And
All right. Well, 21 suspects, 14 fraudulent hospice companies on this board. There's got to be probably hundreds, if not thousands. There's probably thousands. After all, California is the most populated state in the country, so they're just getting started. And I don't know if they had already preliminary investigations. Obviously, the Biden administration probably did next to nothing. So I don't know if there's anything filed away that they could dig back up to see if anything was discovered and they just forgot about it. They ought to be talking to well, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're talking to the IRS, but I would imagine that the IRS probably has entire file rooms full of stuff that didn't really pass the smell test. A lot of red flags came up. And I don't know, probably in just pretty much every department that deals with any kind of federal money of any way, shape, or form. And that the California state government, they're not doing jack shit. There's no way that they're really doing anything about it. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. California Assemblywoman goes to healthcare fraud sites filled with Mercedes G-Wagons, BMWs, and other luxury cars in a not great part of the state. The top of the building has a rooftop lounge. The building is not even ADA compliant, advertised as a medical plaza. No handicap parking or ramps. Over 100 licenses are inside this building. Okay, so it's Minneapolis all over again. People need to be locked up. Keep arresting. And again, man, we're only in I'm sure that they're probably investigating in all the states. I would at least hope that they're investigating in all 50 states. It just, maybe it's just the fact that California, Minneapolis, or Minnesota in general, maybe those are just the two primary states that are just making all the headlines, and maybe they're doing multi-million-dollar busts all over the country. I would imagine that there's probably a section in the DOJ's website where you could probably go and just get like a full list of all the investigations that are going on, and if not, they should have something like that on there.
The building was mostly barren, bar one unexpected amenity. Listen here.
At the very top, so not really sure what a rooftop lounge is for a healthcare company building, but apparently it's an event space.
You missed the very top of that. She
Lovely.
said that there is a rooftop
Fancy
lounge
that.
on the top of that building. Republican
With your money?
California Assemblywoman Alexandra Macedo joins us now. Assemblywoman, thanks so much for being with us. Have you found out since you made that video what that lounge is for?
no, I haven't. I talked to William and he said he was able to get up there, that it looked more like a lunch spot for some of these fraudsters than an actual event space, but it is absolutely wild. We're talking about a building in California that isn't even ADA compliant.
Sounds like
but
California.
If you look on the side of the building, it is advertised as a medical plaza. There's no handicap parking, there wasn't handicap ramps, but it's a medical plaza. Doesn't make sense. Additionally, 157 licenses.
So
Americans with
Hospice Care is the
Disabilities
latest
Act,
industrial-sized
total violation.
Medicaid fraud scheme. At this address, there was 197 hospice agencies that were listed. And as William said, I think there's only 80 offices there. So each one of those offices is hosting 2.5 of these agencies. Let's play a little bit more of the video that you posted online regarding that building. Listen here.
You can see the sign behind me saying that this is a medical plaza, but it has a rooftop and no patients, by the way. I did not see a single person coming in or out of the building, or doctors or nurses or anything like that. It is so peculiar.
Yeah, it's probably on a
said the building
Tuesday,
almost
like
looked
9
It was
a.m.
abandoned. There were boarded up windows as well, but there was one peculiar amenity that the building had, in addition to the rooftop lounge, and that was that the parking lot was full of G-Wagons and other high-end luxury vehicles.
Of course they are.
Yeah, I saw Mercedes, BMW,
People are retarded.
G-Wagons, extremely
Supposed to
fancy
lay low
cars
if you're defrauding
in
the system.
not great part of Van Nuys.
Morons.
It was extremely weird, and like I said, there was boarded up windows and then homeless encampments around. Certainly not the place that I would come looking for hospice care for grandma or grandpa.
All right, and you also tried calling.
Yeah, of course. And you know what? If Democrats get back into power, you can only expect more of this. All of these investigations would just quietly disappear. All these people would very quietly just be let out of prison. They would get away with literally everything. It wouldn't surprise me if they quietly made them whole with all the money that they'd stolen from the government. I would expect nothing less from the Democrat Party these days. Next order breaking, the California AG says 5 people arrested for a $267 million hospice fraud scheme were purchasing out-of-state identities off the dark web and billed taxpayers. So California uses federal dollars to pay for out-of-state patients with no verification. Start arresting officials. They're robbing American taxpayers blind.
We found
yes,
that those involved in this fraud, in this scheme, would purchase personal identifying information for people who live outside of California on the dark web, and then enroll them into covered California, posing as California residents. Straw owners then bought up a number of hospice companies and began billing Medi-Cal for non-existent services for those stolen identities. They used fake records, non-existent offices, and
no
fake
oversight
diagnoses to justify these claims. Meanwhile, the so-called patients were healthy, out of state, and completely unaware that they had been enrolled in hospice care. Once the money was paid out, it was funneled through a complex web of over 130 shell companies and hidden across bank accounts, payment apps, and cryptocurrency to evade detection. The money was
of
laundered.
course.
As I said, the scheme racked up approximately $267 million in fraudulent billing.
$267 million worth of billing. And probably went on for years and completely, I don't even think it was really under the radar. I don't know if the Democrats in charge in California just told everybody to look the other way and don't worry about it. Maybe it was just incompetence. But what would Gavin Newsom say if the reporters went up to him and started asking him questions? Trump's a racist. He's a Nazi. He's a misogynist, a xenophobe. He mansplains. He manspreads. And all this other bullshit. You know how they're going to do it. They're just going to turn everything on Trump somehow. Somehow it's all Trump's fault. All right, I have a feeling all of this California hospice fraud is going to trace right back up to Gavin Newsom. That's probably why he's not going to talk to the press about it. Or he will pretend to start answering the question, and then he'll just take a sharp left turn into something that's completely unrelated. Anyway, goodbye 2028 prospects, and that was from DC Drano. And let's see. So we've got, all right, so it looks like the same thing. 5 people arrested in California after a crackdown targeting fake LA hospice centers. 10 places were raided last night. 10 places raided. Single scheme, $267 million of bogus charges to American taxpayers, so on and so forth. All right, so let's move on to the next topic from Senator Mike Lee. Amnesty in the immigration context refers to any law or policy that gives illegal immigrants the right to remain in the U.S. in spite of and in many ways because of their illegal status. That's exactly what the Dignity Act would do. It would reward millions who entered or overstayed illegally before 2021 with a renewable 7-year legal status, full work authorization, and protection from deportation. That's a massive benefit unavailable to the millions who followed the legal immigration process solely because these individuals broke the law. Fines, background checks, and no federal benefits don't change the core fact. The Dignity Act would reward violations of U.S. immigration law and let illegal immigrants stay and work legally, giving them an advantage over law-abiding visa applicants precisely because they broke the rules. So, of course, they're saying pre-2021, and that's what they'll say. Well, no, we're still going to arrest and deport everybody who came in during the Biden administration, but you already know 2 years, 3, 4 years from now, however long it'll take, they're going to bump that up from 2021 up to 2025, and then like 2027, and they're just going to slowly and very quietly just creep it all the way up to the present time. So then basically anybody who just simply crosses the border, all right, you just get blanket amnesty, citizenship eventually. Would not surprise me. We voted for secure borders and mass deportations after Biden's border invasion and the largest human trafficking operation in U.S. history. Yeah, a lot of it done from precisely the Biden administration, flying in countless immigrants under the cover of darkness in the middle of the night from all over the world, from Asia, from Africa, from the Middle East, from all over the place, just night after night after night, countless tens of thousands for years. All right, there are compelling reasons why many of us oppose amnesty. We shouldn't reward lawbreaking with legal status. And we definitely shouldn't pretend this isn't amnesty, because that's exactly what it is. So let's hear this from Senator Mike Lee.
Amnesty is still amnesty, even if you call it dignity, and even if you make people pay a fine. So look, if you want to push amnesty, go right ahead. I strongly disagree with that. But don't tell us that it's not amnesty, because that's exactly what it is.
Well, yeah, they're going to dress it up, fluff it up, and make it sound like something like completely different than what it actually is. The Dignity Act is not amnesty. It's a legal work status that benefits all of us. Let's have a look at this clip.
Dignity offers you the possibility of coming out of the shadows, but does not give you a path to citizenship. It's not amnesty, it's not citizenship.
Yeah, not
it's
yet.
Just a new status.
Oh, but it will.
The dignity status, which then will give those illegals or undocumented the possibility of living a dignified life in the promised land.
Go home.
To continue
you live
working,
a dignified life
to
in
pay
your
a
home
fine
country.
for their crimes, to pay 1% of their salary to the treasury. But
R-
be able
ridiculous.
never to
How
be
about
deported,
50?
be able to go home
About
at
50%.
night, to buy a home, buy a house, to buy a car, to have a credit card, raise their American children, and be part of society.
Yeah,
with
meanwhile,
no
Gen
shame
Z,
or
soon to be Gen Alpha, can't find a job anywhere because they're entering the workforce, along with all of these other immigrants that are entering the workforce who have little to no skills, just like our young recent high school graduates will have little to no skills entering the workforce. And it's going to be damn near impossible to find a job. It already is damn near impossible to find a job, depending on what sector you're going into. I mean, white collar across the board. I mean, of course, they're blaming like AI and all those things. But look, I think illegal immigration has a lot to do with it. Maybe not strictly speaking white collar. Like that's kind of a different animal. Anyway, whatever. I don't want to get all hung up on that. All right, so we're going to move on to President Trump's Truth Social. This is a video clip. I cannot play this because it is way too graphic for YouTube, even though they blur it out. There is an illegal immigrant from Haiti who tries breaking into this vehicle on the left, and the woman who owns the vehicle walks out through the front of this convenience store. He runs up, right up on her, and then he bashes her in the front of the head with a hammer. She falls to the ground, and he just over and over and over, and he murders her right here on camera. So I'll repost this to my X profile. There's a direct link to my profile down below in the description if you want to go look at it off of YouTube, and you can find it there. I believe that there might be a couple of clips where they don't have it blurred. I guess if you really want to go there, you could probably find that also on the X platform. But again, this version is blurred. But anyway, this is what President Trump had to say about this. An illegal alien criminal from Haiti who was released into our country by the worst president in history, crooked Joe Biden, and the radical Democrats in Congress just beat an innocent woman to death with a hammer at a gas station in Florida. The video of her brutal slaying is one of the most vicious things you will ever see. This animal was allowed to stay here because the Biden administration granted him and all Haitians temporary protective status, a massively abused and fraudulent system which my administration is working to terminate, but deranged liberal district court judges are standing in our way. This one killing should be enough for these radical judges to stop impeding my administration's immigration policies and allow us to end this scam once and for all. To my fellow Republicans and frankly all common sense Americans, never forget that Joe Biden and the Democrat Party turned the United States of America into a dumping ground, allowing tens of millions of criminals, lunatics, and the mentally insane from all over the world to pour into our country totally unvetted and unchecked through our wide open borders. As I've said all along, if you import the third world, you become the third world. And that is what happened all over the 4 years of Democrat control. We are rapidly trying to reverse this decline through deportations, but if the Democrats are ever given another chance at power, they will immediately reopen the border. Oh yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that it's exactly what they would do. And allow America to once again be a safe haven for criminals. Please say a prayer for this innocent woman's family. We will ensure quick and severe justice is served in this case. I don't recommend you watch this tape because it is so terrible, but but I had an obligation to put it up so that people can see what Democrats are protecting and wanting to come into our country, even now after all we've been through. Again, viewer discretion advised, not for children. President Donald J. Trump. Yeah, and I totally second that. Obviously, I saw it, which is why I know that I can't show it here on YouTube. But again, you could just open up my description, just click on the link to my X profile. It takes you directly there. You don't have to sign in or anything. Take you directly there, and you can watch it if you really want to. Although, look, viewer discretion is advised. I don't know. I mean, I suppose that I would recommend, look, if you're on the fence with regard to like all of these criminal illegals being here, you definitely should watch it. Although I think most of us can get a pretty good idea as to how graphic that it really is, because it is that graphic. All right, so Benny Johnson, stop scrolling and watch this. You will never hear a Republican give a better answer on why we must end all foreign migration. And it looks like the rest of the text is the back and forth of the conversation. So let's have a listen.
You're right. We've got communities like Frisco that have been totally transformed, whether it's Islamic immigration or immigration from anywhere else in Asia. I don't want Muslim prayer call. I don't want to hear Muslim calls to prayer in my community. I do not want the caste system
with the giant megaphones. No,
in the schools
come on.
that my kids are going to, because we've had many people come to the United States who are not assimilating into American culture. I want to live in an America that's actually American. And if you go to some of these areas, you feel like you're in a foreign country.
Not Eastern.
And that's a problem. You know, America is for our people. We have a distinct heritage, a distinct culture that's rooted in historical experience in the United States. And that's something that we as conservatives should seek to actually conserve. And that means not flooding our country with infinity immigration every single year, whether it's because of illegal immigration or legal immigration under the guise of, economic interest or anything else. And the reality is with H-1B, and I think I watched some of the clips that came out. This is a program that has an enormous amount of fraud. The idea that we would bring in a 7-Eleven worker from India or anywhere across the globe,
ridiculous. Hire a high
into
schooler.
Our country to work at a gas station because we can't find Americans to work behind the counter at a gas station. I mean, that's
a lot of them somehow
asinine.
buy the gas station.
I mean, it's idiotic, and we all know it. So, in my opinion, the H-1B program at this point should just be abolished outright. You don't need it. There's too much fraud in it.
Way too much.
You've got all kinds of
give them an inch,
issues.
They take a light year.
Particularly in areas like Frisco, where fake businesses are popping up and they're being used to bring more people in with these H-1B visas. And then, by the way, you've changed
all their
migration.
extended family too, probably
bringing their family and to an unlimited degree. This stuff has to end at some point, and I think that point.
All right. Well, it cuts off from there. I didn't cut it off. It just ended. Okay, from the Trump War Room, asylum grant rates have fallen off a cliff thanks to President Donald Trump. Asylum grant rates have plummeted. Average monthly rate for decided asylum cases. And then they've got the different sections here from Obama to Trump to Biden, back to Trump in the columns that they outlined from 2010, going a little bit back, I guess, into 2009, all the way up until currently, well, as of February of 2026. So obviously going way down. And 60% asylum grant rate is at the top, and down to 0, obviously, is at the bottom. So yeah, man, they are plummeting, which is a good thing. Legal immigration and asylum, I bet probably 80%, 90%, probably 95 or hell, even 99% of those who were granted asylum had no business being granted asylum, because coming to America because you're dealing with economic hardship in a third world country ain't asylum. That's not what it was intended for. Religious persecution, a war-torn country, and even in those cases, you're supposed to go to the nearest non-war-torn country or the nearest country of which you won't be religiously persecuted, and you have to apply for asylum there. You can't skip 17 countries and just shoot straight to the United States. It's not how the law was set up, at least not my understanding. All right, Homeland Security, this is our why. The resources the Voice Office provides enable victims of illegal alien crime to pursue the justice they deserve. Angel families will always have the support of President Trump and DHS and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You are why we fight. So let's have a look at this clip.
I don't want any other parent to live the nightmare that I am living. I am her voice now.
Well, that's why many of us support ICE and CBP, immigration enforcement in general. That's why I do as well. So Rapid Response 47, it's an X profile, and I cite it very frequently because it's the Rapid Response account for the White House. They shared some interviews of angel families today, and they were at the White House, and they were speaking, sharing their stories, and they went on for quite a ways. That's why I wasn't able to share any beyond this video because it was a 30-minute clip, and but I do have this one. This one is Angel Mom Jennifer Boss answers what she thinks of her daughter's murderer being let loose under J.B. Pritzker's Sanctuary City policies. And she says it's absolutely insane. He was found with a body in his yard.
The investigation into the death of your daughter, Megan, is still open, but there has been one person who has been charged in association with her death. His name is Luis Mendoza Gonzalez.
Correct.
This is what DHS said about him. Mendoza Gonzalez was charged with abuse of a corpse, 2 counts of concealing the death of a person, that's Megan, and obstructing justice. The charges are Class 4 felonies, but none are detainable offenses under Sanctuary Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois. Consequently, the illegal alien walked free after the conclusion of his court appearance.
Having a body in your yard?
2025, U.S.
They let you out
Immigration
for
and
that?
Customs enforcement officers in Chicago arrested him.
People are fucking
what
lunatics,
do you think
man.
of a state justice system?
I can't believe anybody would vote for
It
these
takes
assholes.
somebody who's under investigation for the murder of your daughter and charged
They're
with the
appointing these
offenses that
judges,
he
by the
is,
way.
being let loose on the streets.
I didn't understand
Except the
it
judges
at
that you
all.
vote for locally,
It's
I guess.
absolutely insane.
It's insane.
I can't even understand how they justified this and argued it in Congress to agree to have this happen. I mean, he
Well, it's
was
Illinois for
found
you.
with a body in his yard that he had in his possession for 51 days, hidden in a garbage can while everybody was looking for her. And the only thing that we know about how she died is what he said. There was no time for investigation. You know, he said, oh, well, she just died at my house, and so I was afraid, so I put her in the garbage can. Okay, well,
That's insane.
Go on home then.
Wow.
Who does that?
That is insane. No charge of, I don't know, involuntary manslaughter or murder. It's on his property. That's absolutely insane. What about DNA? Are they going to run anything like that? All right, so, okay, so I did actually grab one of these clips from acting ICE Director Todd Lyons. He meets with families of those killed by illegals, and they give a quote here, which I imagine he's going to say here in the video.
I want to say to the victims' families who have experienced these crimes, we see you and we hear you. And through the Voice Office, we are committed to ensuring that no one's left behind. And I just want to say on a personal note, the families you see up here I've become really close with. They're a part of the ICE family. But when ICE officers and special agents are demonized, called Nazis,
relentlessly,
you know, hated, there's violence against them. We do it for these individuals, these families who are no longer with their loved ones because they didn't get the justice they deserved. And that's the main reason why ICE and our law enforcement partners are out there, is so these angel families will finally get justice.
Yeah, 100%. It's just that simple. And like I said, this is Rapid Response 47. If you go to that profile, they've got several other video clips of the individuals that were standing behind Todd Lyons, where they shared their stories at the podium. So if you want to go check that out, I'll repost that. But anyway, like the word Nazi these days, it literally means somebody I don't like. That's what the left has diluted it down to. It's essentially like really what it means these days. It's freaking ridiculous. All right, RNC research happening at the Democrat National Committee meeting. Oregon Democrat Party Chair Nathan Soltz says F ICE, F MAGA, and leave us the F alone. Members applaud. Unhinged. Well, where was that again? Oh, yeah, in Oregon. Thank God I don't live anywhere near Oregon.
So in the 30 seconds I have, I just want to say as clearly as I can, for my mom, on behalf of all Oregon Democrats, but just as the proud son of an immigrant, I need
Probably
to
a
say
legal
clearly,
one. Bonehead.
Chinga la migra, fuck ICE, fuck MAGA, and leave us the fuck alone.
Well, chupa mi huevos. Absolutely morons. You know, God bless anybody who's a conservative or Republican or a libertarian or whatever it is that you label yourself. If you're not a far leftist, Even if you're a classical liberal, I mean, there's no way that at least as far as I understand, I just don't understand how they'd be able to align themselves with the Democratic Party today. I just don't see how that freaking be possible. All right. Anyway, House, Homeland, GOP, congressional Democrats' repeated government shutdowns have taken a toll on our frontline DHS personnel, especially TSA security officers that serve every day to keep the traveling public safe. TSA employees have missed $1 billion in paychecks since the beginning of the 43-day shutdown last fall, forcing hundreds of security officers to leave the agency. This is why House Republicans have voted 4 times to fund the Department of Homeland Security and passed a resolution to honor the important work of DHS workers. Democrats have repeatedly chosen political games instead. That's very simply exactly what they did. Congressman Michael Guest says, I was honored for the opportunity to meet with local TSA agents at my office in Brandon. We discussed the impact of the shutdown on our TSA agents and their families and spoke of the need for Congress to ensure our DHS employees get paid. And all right, so yeah, okay. Okay, Mississippi. He said Brandon. So I live near a city, Brandon. I live in the Tampa Bay area, and we have a city named Brandon, so I was curious. He didn't look familiar, so I didn't think he was representing over in my area. All right, so yep, there you go. It's just an image of him meeting with some TSA agents and sharing his experience with them. Speaker Mike Johnson, the Save America Act is about proof of citizenship to register to vote and using a photo ID when you do so. Why are Chuck Schumer and Democrats against this common sense measure? Because they want illegal aliens to vote in our elections. Let's have a look at Speaker
Mike
Johnson.
We passed it 3 times in the House, the SAVE Act twice, last Congress, this Congress, and now the Save America Act. All we're talking about is proof of citizenship to register to vote and a photo ID when you do that. It's a 90-10 issue in the country. 70% of Democrats think that is a reasonable restriction on voting.
71%.
And yet, he cannot get Democrats in the Senate to go along with it.
But why is that? Why? Why do you think it's happening?
Well,
because they want fraud.
It's because they count on cheating.
It easy for fraudulent people to
illegals voting. They count on people coming in who are not supposed to vote in our elections. It's quite clear. Why else would Chuck Schumer and the Democrats oppose a measure that is so wildly popular with the people and such a measure of common sense?
Yeah, and why do they refuse to release their voter rolls? Why don't they do that? All of the blue states will not release their voter rolls. Just the simple documentation that shows the list of those who are registered to vote in their state. They won't release them. And also, virtually every single one of those states, I think with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, they automatically register you to vote when you go get a driver's license. And they also give driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. Of course, it's illegal for them to do that well, I'm sure I don't know if it's federally illegal to give them a driver's license, but it's certainly illegal for them to give them a voter or register them to vote if they get their driver's license. But does that mean that they're not doing it? Of course not. But they won't release their voter rolls. So when you hear Chuck Schumer and the Democrats say, well, there's only been 77 cases of illegals voting in our national elections going all the way back to 1990. Well, yeah, of course, those are the ones who were put on trial and convicted, the ones who went through the entire system, because that's all a matter of public record. But what about all the ones who are on the voter rolls that you're not allowing us to see? Why would they hide the voter rolls? Why would they do that? It's almost as if they're cheating their asses off. All right, Congresswoman Laurel Lee, reminder, countries around the world that require an ID to vote. And there's the list for you. There's quite a lot of countries that require an ID to vote. There's Peru. There's even Kenya. There's Thailand. There's Ghana. There's Slovenia, Chile, Estonia, Spain, Luxembourg, Germany. I mean, look, countries all over the world. They require them to vote. And that's probably not every single country. It's probably just the amount that they could just put together on the screen without making the font too small. But yeah, in the United States, the blue states, they don't require a voter ID. No, we don't need a voter ID. A voter ID in any way, shape, or form. House Administration Committee GOP. Democrats call it common sense voter ID requirements Jim Crow 2.0, which of course Jim Crow was completely spearheaded and championed by the Democrat Party and created by the Democrat Party. Watch Rep. McGriffith debunk this outlandish claim. Well,
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my colleagues. All American citizens should have the right to vote. I do, however, disagree that the desire to have all Americans being able to vote has been bipartisan in the past. Having been a child during the Jim Crow era, I can assure you that the Make Elections Great Again bill is not Jim Crow.
Nope.
Let's talk about Jim Crow in Virginia.
Let's do it.
In 1902, the Virginia Constitution was rewritten by Democrats. They didn't take it to the people to vote on it. They just did it assembled in Richmond. And the concept
Sounds like
was,
Democrats.
everybody will recall, to disenfranchise African Americans. But what people don't recall is it was also to disenfranchise poor, white, Republican voters in the western part of the state, the very part of the state that I now have the great pleasure and proud to represent.
Well, and don't forget, it was like, what, 90% of black Americans in the early 20th century. Guess which party they were registered with? Of course, they're Republicans. They were registered with the Republicans until the whole Great Migration thing happened in the 1930s. I mean, I'm no historian, but I believe that that's correlated somehow with them slowly migrating over to the Democratic Party, where they're now financially enslaved. They're enslaved to the democratic system, to the welfare state that they set up.
It was done to take them out of the voting rolls,
Not all,
too, because the
but
Republican populist coalition was challenging the dominant Democrats in the state. And the Democrat Party did that, led by E. Carter Glass of Lynchburg, Virginia. And it would take some time to break that coalition up. And you know what it was, Mr. Chairman?
Probably Republicans.
It was the federal government interfering, according to all the Democrat politicians at the time, interfering in the states.
Oh, no.
And telling them you can't continue to run your elections with poll taxes, with complex subjective registration processes, and having, quote unquote, an understanding clause, making sure that people understood what was going on in the election. That broke that up in the mid-'60s.
Yikes.
And guess what followed that? The election of the first Republican governor since Reconstruction in 1969. I participated in that election, not as a voter, but as somebody working out there in the hustings. Yeah, I was a weird kid. And I remember the debate between the Mountain Valley Republicans and the Democrats who controlled everything and who didn't want blacks and poor whites from the western part of the state actively participating. So I assure you, Mr. Chairman, your bill is not Jim Crow.
Doesn't sound like it.
I've got to tell you, it was an interesting time to live in, and I'm glad it's passed. And what we want to do is to make sure American citizens can vote.
I was saying maybe it's passed for now, but if Democrats have their way, they're going to roll every bit of that back, because the Democrat Party, they've truly not changed. They haven't changed since their friggin' inception, man. All right, Rep. Ilhan Omar. So they reposted this. They essentially attached Rep. Ilhan Omar's post to this. Don't be fooled. The SAVE Act is a Jim Crow-style disenfranchisement bill designed to make it harder for you to vote. So let's hear what she attached to this.
Ilhan Omar
It's more nonsense.
Town Hall in Spring Lake Park last night. So it was there she received numerous questions about the Save America Act. If passed, it would require photo ID and proof of citizenship to vote in upcoming elections, something supporters say is needed to stop non-citizens from voting in federal elections. But most Democrats believe it amounts to a poll tax, as many legal voters, they don't currently have the paperwork required.
No, it doesn't. And guess what? It's up to the state to determine the forms of ID, whether if it's the passport or the birth certificate, which the birth certificate is administered by the state. It's not administered by the federal government. So if the state, such as Minnesota, if they're worried that people aren't going to have any money to be able to obtain their birth certificate, if they charge like a $30 fee or a $50 fee, waive it. Waive the fee. That's a state matter. That's not a federal matter. Just and as far as the election goes, if anybody needs to obtain their birth certificate for the purpose of obtaining their voter ID, then charge $0.00 to get your birth certificate in Minnesota.
By the bill.
The SAFE Act in itself is coded in this idea of election integrity, but it is a Jim Crow styled
they have the buzzwords, but they don't have the substance behind it.
That is designed to make it hard for every single demographic that they find undesirable, and that they blame in making this.
Okay, so they'll send out blanket ballots to everybody, but they're not going to send out any like blanket birth certificates. Why don't they just automatically issue birth certificates to every single person across the entire state of Minnesota who was born in Minnesota? Why not do that? I haven't heard anybody talk about that, not Republicans either, for that matter.
In electing people like me.
Let's make it easy.
Who they do not
send everybody to their birth certificates.
Should have.
If you already have one, well, guess what? You're getting another copy.
Represent her neighbors.
friggin' brain dead, man. These people are fucking retarded. It's so frustrating. It's really frustrating. But you know what? Like, that's Minnesota. If you live in Minnesota, you know, I feel awful. I feel bad for you if you're just not in that district. Well, I mean, I would say either way. You know, that would suck either way to have to deal with all this nonsense, especially in Minnesota. But they've been a blue state for a long time, haven't they? I think going like all the way back to like even like when Richard Nixon, was it his first or his second? I think it was his second term when he was elected. Every single state in the country went red except for Minnesota. And I think the same thing went with Ronald Reagan too. I think also it was every single state went red except for Minnesota. All right, so we're going to move on to Lauren Chin. Republicans are almost guaranteed to lose the House, and now it's predicted they'll lose the Senate. It's almost like failing to deliver on any of their campaign promises is not a winning strategy for congressional Republicans. And this is on Kalshi. Breaking Democrats are now in the lead to win the U.S. Senate. And it looks like it recently had, like, they've been really neck and neck just in recent, days, maybe the last week or so. But yeah, they got like a slight lead over the Republicans right now. But look, this is all just monetarily. It's just people who, if you want to bet on who is going to win for the midterms, you could vote or you can pay for either voting with the Democrats or with the Republicans. So there could be a fairly good argument to be made that some rich Democrats or rich far left progressives just dump some money into this platform just to boost up the Democrats. I mean, look, I don't know. As far as like the Republicans going down, I mean, look, they track like perfectly, which, you know, like if people dumped a whole bunch of money voting for Democrat, obviously the red is going to go down as the blue goes up. So I wouldn't take this as the gospel truth, although what Lauren Chin said does make a lot of sense, though, in the way that they're not passing a lot of the policies and the campaign promises that they did promise us, and they're not really doing a whole lot. It's really disappointing because, look, they don't have full control over the Senate because they need 60 votes to pass a lot of stuff in the Senate, if not, well, pretty much everything. But they do control the House. Although, to be fair, with Mike Johnson being the Speaker, they did pass the Save America Act in the House. I'm pretty sure they did. And they also passed the funding for the Department of Homeland Security. It's just in the Senate. It's all because of the Democrats, man. They're all obstructing. That's why they say that they should be nuking the filibuster, because Democrats are going to nuke it anyway if they get the Senate back, especially if they have a Democrat in the Oval Office. All right, Limmer unleashed. House Democrats threw a fit today after House Republicans blocked them from bringing a bill to the floor during recess that would have stripped President Trump of his war powers. Essentially, House Democrats tried to pass a bill stripping Trump of his powers with less than 10 total votes. Talk about a coup-like mentality. After their meltdown, we interviewed Rep. Glenn Ivey, the person Hakeem Jeffries tapped to lead today's Get Trump stunt. And stay tuned for the video. But look, I mean, like this kind of begs the question, and I'm not no expert on like a Senate matters, but couldn't just a handful of senators, like what they did with the DHS bill? Remember that bullshit they did at 3:00 in the morning with Leader John Thune? There was only like 5 senators that voted on this, but somehow that was considered unanimous when they passed the DHS funding bill in the Senate to not include border immigration and customs enforcement and CBP. They seem to have passed that. Why can't they do that with the Save America Act? Why can't they just show up at like 4:30 in the morning tomorrow morning and just pass the Save America Act in the Senate? It's unanimous. There were 5 Republicans that showed up. It's unanimous. I mean, I don't understand. Maybe it's the whole like reconciliation bill. Maybe if it's like something financial versus something that's like a policy matter. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, you know, I'm ignorant when it comes to all the details with regard to like the Senate matters and everything. Anyway, this is just a
Pursuant to Clause 13 of Rule 1, the House stays adjourned until 2:30 p.m. on Monday, April 13th, 2026.
Oh, man, that dude was pissed. He banged that gavel. By the way, in the background, they were screaming shame because they're a bunch of brain-dead lunatics.
2026.
Oh, man. He almost punched a hole through the friggin' table. All right, Loomer unleashed. Breaking. House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries sent out a letter to House Democrats inviting them back to Washington, D.C. this week to strip President Trump of his war powers and begin the 25th Amendment talks. Well, joke's on them because we now have a ceasefire with Iran. So, you know, we're not dropping bombs right now. We're not firing off missiles. And I don't believe that Iran is either. At least they're not supposed to be. So, I mean, like, I think y'all are a little bit too late regardless. I don't think that's really going to happen, though. But anyway, Jeffries wrote, House Democrats will demand passage of the War Powers Resolution introduced by Ranking Member Greg Meeks via unanimous consent at the next pro forma session on Thursday, April 9th at 11:30 a.m. sharp. The letter also announces that January 6th committee member Jamie Raskin will lead 25th Amendment discussions on Friday. In addition, on Friday, April 10th at 3 p.m., Ranking Member Jamie Raskin and House Judiciary Committee Democrats will host a briefing on Trump administration accountability and the 25th Amendment. Clearly, getting Trump is the only thing elected Democrats care about. I'll repost that if you want to read this letter, but I'm sure the post covered the gist of it. And so expect nothing more or less out of the Democrats than just obstruction, dirty games, filthy games, greasy ass games, just trying to drag us into just, the dystopia in every sense of the word. All right, Catherine Clark, who is the whip for the Democrats, she says, today, House Democrats tried to bring another War Powers resolution to the floor, and Republicans blocked us as gas prices soar and troops are put in harm's way. The GOP continues to be complicit in this reckless war. Even though, there is no war. There's no war declared by Congress. So, a conflict, I don't know if that's, splitting hairs or whatever, but like I said, man, there's a ceasefire for the next 2 weeks. They're trying to put pen to paper. They're working on this 10-point plan. And I was on the lookout for it today. I didn't see that 10-point plan released. I don't think it's going to be released until it's finalized. So it could be in a couple days. Or hell, it could be tomorrow. I don't know. Or maybe it might take 2 weeks. Or maybe it won't happen at all. Hopefully it'll happen. Hopefully we'll get to an agreement. That way, Trump could own the Democrats just that much better. Saying that, we had a brief conflict with Iran. It lasted about a month. But it didn't take 20 years like the Democrats were screaming about. Nope, that didn't happen. So let's hope it works out that way. All right, Florida's Voice. Democrats rage against Trump. Leading Democrats are launching tirades against the president in the media, resorting to baseless character attacks and threats of impeachment.
Judiciary Committee Democrats are going to brief the entire caucus about the different accountability mechanisms that are available to us, including, or available to the country, I should say, including but not limited to the 25th Amendment.
Okay, let me just stop there.
Including but not limited to.
Dude,
we're going to do everything.
That's like the epitome of a Freudian slip.
Uh-oh.
When Hakeem Jeffries doesn't say it's about the country that we're doing this.
No, of course it's not.
But it's more about what we're going to do.
Yes, dude. It's because the Democrats are communists today. Well, they've probably always been communists, but they put party over country. Senator John Fetterman said that. That's where I got that from. A Democrat senator. He said, these days, my party is putting their party over the country. And that's exactly what they're doing because they're a bunch of effing commies.
That's Freudian.
It's pretty close to being 100% accurate.
Yeah, that's it. That's called a severe Freudian slip right there. The judiciary for Democrats is going to brief the entire caucus about the different accountability mechanisms that are available to us. Oh, I'm sorry. But to the country. No. You meant you.
Well,
to
of course
my
they
point.
Did.
25th
Give a shit about the country.
President's
about their
crazy.
own power.
We've got to get him held accountable. We got to get him out of office. We've got to impeach him.
Oh, yeah.
You got J.D. Pritzker, who somehow, some way believes that he's going to be president of the United States one day.
So much of what he says is unhinged. And think about what that's done to our credibility around the world. The fact that he really doesn't sometimes know where he is. He doesn't know who he's talking to.
Biden.
You sure? Are we talking about Joe Biden? Is this like a Joe Biden clip? Is that what we're talking about? Because it sounds like you're talking about Joe Biden. Because I don't think you're talking about President Trump. Are you? I don't even know. He knows.
And doesn't realize the world is listening when you're president of the United States. So it's fine to have private thoughts about things, but to share them randomly in public, frankly, is a frightening prospect for the future of
Okay, and he's one of these.
And they're only speaking on emotion, no facts, no logic, no data, no statistics or anything like that. They just fully expect anyone who votes D, votes blue no matter who, is just completely politically ignorant. And if you watch mainstream news like MS Now or CNN, that's exactly what you are.
People who you could make the case that the president does speak off the cuff and he does let it out into the open.
Yeah, man, there's no doubt about that.
About things
that's what Trump's always done.
Upset and angry, and he knows that you are dealing with a country who doesn't believe anything when it comes to this piece of paper you're wanting us to sign. Oh,
well, and I said that the day that he put out that post I said that the Democrats, they want to impeach him, invoking the 25th Amendment because Trump said that he was going to wipe out an entire civilization. He was talking about bombing Iran at the whole 8 o'clock p.m. deadline. He said a whole civilization would be destroyed or wiped out. No, I'm paraphrasing. It's not verbatim, but he did use the word civilization. He probably should have used the word regime in place of that, but I guess that's neither here nor there. He said it, and I don't agree with the choice of words. Obviously, he didn't mean that he was going to wipe out the entirety of Iran, because in the exact same post at the end, he said, "God bless the people of Iran." So why would he say that if he intended on just wiping all of them out?
You want us to sign this piece of paper so we'll stop enriching uranium so we won't build a nuclear weapon? Okay, we'll get right on that. Hold on. Okay, here's your paper. Sometimes you have regimes that they don't really respect the paper, but they respect the power and what you have and what you could wield against certain nations.
Well, yeah, that's true. And you can't forget the auto pen. Democrats love the auto pen. All right, so we got Marjorie Taylor Greene. I came across this. I haven't heard anything from Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's not really, I don't know, like not really all that politically relevant. I mean, she's not in office anymore, to say the least. But anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene calls for Trump's removal from office. It's absolute madness. How can any person that is mentally stable call for an entire civilization of people to be murdered? So even she's drumming up all the nonsense.
Called for the president to be removed from office under the 25th Amendment to the Constitution after that threat that he made about destroying the whole civilization of Iran. The president has a long history of shocking and unprecedented social media posts. Why was this the final straw for you?
Yeah, it's called free speech.
Because it's absolute madness. How can any person that is mentally stable call for an entire civilization of people to be murdered, to be wiped out, to never come back again? That's what the president called for. And that shows that there's serious instability in his thinking, that he would, not only would he even say that in a private room, perhaps with his advisors, but actually go to his megaphone, his Truth Social, and post that for the entire country and the entire world. And it's unreal. This should never be tolerated. I know it's a very difficult, hard stretch to see it actually coming through, but the conversation needs to be had.
Well, look, if it's a massive stretch to even remotely seeing that come to any fruition whatsoever, then what the hell are we doing? What are we talking about then? Again, yeah, he absolutely shouldn't have said that, because it's frustrating when Trump sometimes does this, because he just hands all of that ammunition over to the Democrats. And I don't know, maybe he's playing like the whole 4D chess, 25D chess or whatever. Maybe he's trying to lead them into a trap. I have no idea. I mean, it's hard to know, really.
And he's out of control, and people within the administration need to step up, take responsibility, and rein this in.
I mean, look, maybe it's just a misdirection tactic. Maybe Trump is saying, hey, look over here while I do something else over here completely different while the Democrats are distracted. It could be that simple. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. All right. So we're going to get into a few of Trump's Truth Social posts that he made today. First one, which was posted by Rapid Response. I think all of them are posted from Rapid Response. We're going to start with this one. All U.S. ships, aircraft, and military personnel with additional ammunition, weaponry, and anything else that is appropriate and necessary for the lethal prosecution and destruction of an already substantially degraded enemy will remain in place in and around Iran until such time as the real agreement reached is fully complied with. If, for any reason, it is not, which is highly unlikely, then the shooting starts. Bigger and better and stronger than anyone has ever seen before. It was agreed a long time ago, and despite all of the fake rhetoric to the country, no nuclear weapons and the Strait of Hormuz will be open and safe. In the meantime, our great military is loading up and resting, looking forward, actually, to its next conquest. America is back. And on to the next one. The Wall Street Journal, one of the worst and most inaccurate editorial boards in the world, stated that I declared premature victory in Iran. Actually, it is a victory, and there's nothing premature about it. Because of me, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And very quickly, you'll see oil start flowing with or without the help of Iran, and to me, it makes no difference either way. The Wall Street Journal will, as usual, live to eat their words. They are always quick to criticize, but never to admit when they're wrong, which is most of the time. President Donald J. Trump. And then this one, which Benny Johnson posted, President Trump warns Iran is violating their agreement. And Trump says, Iran is doing a very poor job, dishonorable, some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not the agreement we have, President Donald J. Trump. And the last one, there are reports that Iran is charging fees to tankers going through the Hormuz Strait. They better not be, and if they are, they better stop now, President Donald J. Trump. All right, from Dick's Order, just in, President Trump speaks out on the current state of Iran negotiations happening behind the scenes. Per Fox, Trump says he is optimistic a peace deal is within reach, and Iran's leaders talk differently at a meeting than talking to the press. They are more reasonable. If they don't make a deal, it will be painful.
Fox News Alert now, we have new comments from President Trump on the ceasefire in Iran. The president telling NBC News in a brand new interview that he was very optimistic a peace deal with Iran was within reach and that Iran's leaders talk much differently when you're at a meeting than they do to the press. They're much more reasonable. President Trump also saying that if Iran does not make a deal, quote, it's going to be very painful.
Of course. Well, we already basically read everything that they said, but there you go. All right, Caroline Levitt. John Fetterman breaks with Democrats and says Trump's military strikes on Iran have made the world safer. So, of course, he's breaking from Democrats because, I would have never guessed it when he was running against Dr. Oz that he would have been the one that would exercise the highest level of common sense among anybody else in the Democrat Party, especially like during the height of his campaign. He suffered a freaking stroke, and he was in the hospital for a while, and they weren't even sure if he would even really make a full recovery or even, any substantial recovery, which he did. And turned out that he's like the most base Democrat that there is right now. It's kind of crazy, man. Sometimes, truth is stranger than fiction. All right, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman said Wednesday that President Trump's recent military actions in Iran have made the world safer, offering a stark contrast to criticism from other Democratic lawmakers. Quote, usually the Iranians only respond to power, Fetterman told Hannity. Which, by the way, the whole interview is going to be up here at the top. It's 8 minutes long, so I'm just going to go through the article. And, of course, this will be linked down in the description if you want to watch that video for yourself. Quote, now it might force them to continue more kinds of military strikes, but remind everyone their nuclear ambitions have been severely damaged at this point. The Israelis have killed many of the scientists and destroyed a lot of those nuclear facilities as well, too. Fetterman argued that while there are still concerns about remaining enriched uranium, actions taken against Iran have significantly weakened the regime's capabilities and improved global security. And every single thing Iran has done is an entire war crime. Now we are the force of good in the world, Fetterman said. Fetterman also pushed back on Democrats' calls for a new war powers vote, arguing it would undermine the ongoing mission. We're not even 40 days into this, and now I'm reading that they have to force another war powers vote. And I will vote against that now because we have to stand behind our military to allow them to accomplish, the goals of epic fury. And look, I would say that would also kind of set a precedent with regard to future presidents, including Democrats. But you really think that Republicans would be doing this? Look, maybe they will, but Democrats would probably just straight up ignore it if they were to do some war powers vote. And even if they got the vote passed, I'm sure that whoever it would be, they'd be like, well, whatever, I'm the president, I'm just going to do it anyway. All right, Fetterman's remarks regarding the Trump administration's actions in Iran contrast with those of several Democrats who have criticized the strikes and raised concerns about escalation and congressional authority. Quote, the bottom line is Iran still has its nuclear stockpile. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said on Wednesday, announcing that Democrats plan to force a vote on the war powers resolution next week, which obviously there's absolutely no way to verify that at all. And he's probably completely and totally making that up. That's probably 100% fake, complete fake news. All right, its nuclear ambitions are still unchecked, and if or if not accelerated, what the hell is Trump doing, Schumer said. Senate Democrats, including Schumer, have branded the war in Iran as Trump's war of choice. Of course, because Democrats they're evil today. Plain and simple. All right, U.S. Central Command update from CENTCOM commander on Operation Epic Fury. Let's hear what the commander is saying.
Hi, I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of U.S. Central Command.
Oh my God, he's
Less
loud.
than 6 weeks ago, more than 50,000 of America's sons and daughters in uniform launched Operation Epic Fury and embarked on a mission of profound consequence. We set out to dismantle the Iranian regime's ability to project power beyond its own borders, and we clearly accomplished this task. Iran has suffered a generational military defeat. The United States and Israel systematically destroyed Iran's ability to conduct large-scale military operations for years to come.
Extremely precise,
Iran's
man.
conventional military capability, built over 40 years,
dead
at
on
the cost
target
of
every
billions
time.
of dollars, has been eliminated. As the president expressed
At least everyone
earlier this week,
that they show
our
us.
core strategic military objectives have been achieved after destroying Iran's missile, drone, and naval capabilities and their defensive industrial base. After successfully conducting more than 13,000 strikes on Iranian military targets and flying thousands upon thousands of combat flights, U.S. forces have paused offensive operations in accordance with the ongoing ceasefire. However, we remain present. We remain vigilant, and we remain ready if called. We also continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with our regional partners in maintaining the most sophisticated and largest active air defense umbrella in the world. At the beginning of this campaign, I sent a letter to the force expressing my expectations, and our extraordinary warfighters exceeded each and every one of them. So to all our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, and Coast Guardsmen operating forward, you represent the strongest, most lethal military the world has ever known. In less than 40 days, you destroyed the military that Iran built for over 40 years.
Yeah, man, that's wild.
Your courage, grit, and
Wouldn't have
ingenuity
expected that.
have served America
But they did.
extremely well. Finally, I want to close by remembering
I didn't even see Iran's military.
13 fallen
Don't they have
warriors
1.3
who made
million
the ultimate
soldiers?
sacrifice during Operation Epic Fury. We continue to hold their memories and their families, their friends, and their teammates in our prayers. Their selfless service and dedication will always be remembered as future generations follow their example and carry forward their legacy. Our men and women in uniform represent the best of America. I just could not be prouder and more humbled to serve with them, and I know the American people share that same pride. So to our warriors, stay sharp, remain resolved, and continue to take care of one another. Thanks so much, and Godspeed.
Definitely. God bless the troops. God bless their family. Hope every one of them comes home safe from here on out. And from Pierce Morgan Uncensored, they have to be at the top of their game. People's lives depend on them focusing on the mission. Jack Carr gives his take on the U.S. military perspective of Trump, Iran, and Israel, all claiming victory after the ceasefire.
The one thing you want to know when you're going into an operation is, well, what's the end game? What are we trying to achieve? So that when you achieve it, everyone is crystal clear what has been achieved and what victory looks like. What you don't want, I would imagine, and you can, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seemed to me here the goalposts kept changing so often in those first few days that it was very hard to work out what victory would look like. So now everyone is claiming victory. The Americans are claiming victory, the Israelis are claiming victory, the Iranians are claiming, everyone thinks they've won. And in a way, everybody has won part of this.
Well, everybody's going to tell their people they won, including Iran.
There's no clear, like we started here with this mission and we've achieved it and we're exiting. It's
dude, it is clear. We took out, 13,000 of their targets, and they took down, one of our planes, and one of our refueling planes went down, but that wasn't with Iran, or that wasn't directly due to them. Then we lost a couple of fighters over in Kuwait, but that was by friendly fire. As far as I know, that was like the only thing that they took down with us, and we took out over 13,000 of their targets. And we also sank, 160 different naval vessels. We completely obliterated their air force. They don't have a single submarine anymore. And allegedly, we took out any possibility and any ambitions. Well, maybe not ambitions, but we took out their capability of developing nuclear weapons. At least that's what the government's telling us. Even though there's some conspiracies out there that the whole thing really may have just been about trying to put a chokehold on China's ability to get oil from Iran, because something like up to 50% of oil that China imports comes from Iran.
Become a lot messier. And I just imagine from the military point of view, it's deeply unsatisfactory, isn't it?
Well, there's the negotiation start, but before the start of the war, there was those things we wanted out of negotiations. Then obviously, no nuclear weapons, no ballistic missile capability, and no support of proxy terrorist groups, namely Hezbollah. So those.
Well, and also try to encourage the people of Iran to seize their country back. That was definitely spoken quite a lot in the opening days of Operation Epic Fury.
So those three main negotiating points on the table. Couldn't get there, and 6 weeks ago, as someone who, anyway, it made me sad to see that. I mean, diplomacy failed, any upstream disruption operations type of thing failed on the intelligence side of the house. I mean, covert action failed to achieve those things. So everything failed, and now we go to war. So that made me sad right there. So now we switch to war aims and goals. Is
that a Pink Floyd hat? Is he wearing a Pink Floyd hat?
The military apparatus, which are different that we were negotiating for. So then they're very clearly articulated. This morning I saw one of our generals up there talking about how they were tasked to destroy the Iranian Navy, to degrade or destroy their ballistic missile and drone capability, and to hit or totally dismantle their military industrial base. So that was the military side of the house. And then there's still those diplomacy things that we're looking at, those three goals of diplomacy, but added to that now, as you mentioned earlier, is the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, that's having an effect across the entire world at the moment. So things do change, goalposts change, but for that guy on the ground, they're focused on the mission. And these days, of course, you're getting X and you're getting social and you're getting all these inputs that the guys didn't have during World War II. And so it is a little bit different because foreign entities can now use those platforms in order to manipulate. It's a tool, and
of course, man,
as a weapon.
Social media.
So for the guys and the women who are in this fight right now,
except in Iran, I thought there were internet out still.
So they are not too worried about all these other things, all these other inputs. They have to be at the top of their game, that people's lives depend on them focusing on the mission. So that's where their focus is right now.
All right. Well, look, and I think that there's a pretty valid argument to be made that the whole nuclear weapons thing was a cover for us trying to protect the global petrodollar, just simply the petrodollar with regard to China. And because from what I've seen or heard, not sure if it's confirmed by the government, maybe they've confirmed it, but apparently China and Iran were trying to work with one another to cut the U.S. out with regard to exporting oil from Iran and into China, that they were going to trade with a Chinese yuan, and maybe that's what led to Operation Epic Fury. But of course, that's not the official reason. The official reason is the whole nuclear weapons and trying to free the people of Iran, which it kind of tracks pretty closely with all the protests that happened in December and in January. And then we learned that the Ayatollah, the Iranian regime, that they murdered up to 40,000 of their own citizens during that protest because the economy was in shambles, and they were, they pretty much reached a point where they had nothing else to lose. And that was the main reason why they were protesting. All right, so let's move on to Mays. This is how they talked about Iran before Trump decided to do something about it. It's a shame for the country that the entire platform of the Democratic Party for the past decade has been to just oppose every single thing that Trump says or does. So let's hear Chuck Schumer.
First, I'd like to commend Senator Dodd for putting forth a comprehensive plan to arm the administration with the tools they need to put a stop to Iran's rogue nuclear program. I believe that when it comes to Iran, we should never take the military option off the table. The Obama administration initiated direct diplomatic negotiations with Iran, but that government, led by President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, stubbornly refused to suspend their nuclear program, despite President Obama's genuine attempt at diplomacy. Iran's nuclear weapon program represents a severe threat to American national interests.
Well, look at that. Their nuclear weapons program going all the way back to the year 2010, and it's probably gone back quite far from before 2010. So for the last 16 years, they've had the whole nuclear weapon ambitions, which is absolutely insane that the Obama administration would send them, what was the number, $1.6 billion in hard currency in U.S. $100 bills that they would send off to Iran. Absolutely insane.
Because their acquisition of nuclear weapons could lead to the proliferation of nuclear weapons throughout the Middle East and beyond, ending any hopes for a nuclear weapons-free world. Make no mistake, A
so
nuclear
weird.
Iran would
It's exactly
be
what Trump's trying to
destabilizing
do.
to its neighbors, encourage terrorism against the United States and Israel, and the risk of both conventional and nuclear war in the Middle East would rise very considerably. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has already threatened to, quote, wipe Israel off the map. So we know for a fact that a nuclear Iran would pose a potential threat to our closest ally in the region, the state of Israel. We've had a lot of divisions between Democrats and Republicans. But on the issue of making sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, we're united. The threat, the specter of an Iranian nuclear weapon can bring Democrats and Republicans together. We'll continue to, and I hope the Iranian government recognizes that. We are united as two parties, we are united as a nation, and we are united as a family of nations to make sure
Well, it's a shame we're not anymore. No thanks to Democrats.
To prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear power. That would represent a disaster to the nations of the world and one we cannot tolerate.
Well, obviously, Democrats want them to have a nuclear weapon now, or they just hate anything and everything Trump does. If Trump says that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, Democrats are just instantly the opposite. No, we got to arm Iran. And look, that wouldn't even surprise me either. If a Democrat gets back into the Oval Office and if Democrats retake Congress, are we going to start secretly just shipping nuclear weapons over to Iran? Here you go. Here, you wanted it, you got it. All right, Florida's Voice. NATO may play role in Hormuz. NATO's Secretary General has commented that NATO may play a role in the Strait of Hormuz mission, but to what capacity?
Breaking news here.
That's what I just said.
That doesn't sound like a very good idea, but
Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO's comments that NATO may be willing to play a role in the possible Strait of Hormuz mission if it's able to.
I don't know why. They haven't done anything
Italy
else.
Was asked if it's willing to assist
How can we
the
trust
United
them?
States. A spokesperson for Italy and the Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said, we'll see how the conversation with the Hormuz group goes. Could you potentially see a role for NATO here, whether it's military escorts, as we saw back during the Reagan administration, or maybe it's some sort of NATO protectorate as a bulwark against Iran? Can you see a role for NATO here?
I wonder if that's going to be part of the situation where NATO would be protecting the straits, and so that there is, you don't want to say skin in the game, but you know what I'm saying, that if you're concerned about Iran being the ones through a toll or any other way to be like, yeah, don't you worry about it, everything's secure. And you're like, I'm not really sure about you guys. Then
yeah, I'm not sure either.
Come in and do it.
Iran will threaten them. They'll say, okay, we'll back off.
The answer from...
Sure, you can charge a toll.
Okay.
I can see a
which is what Iran wants to do.
For a coalition of the willing.
That's David Petraeus. Okay, I looked at it, I was like, that looks like David Petraeus, but I wasn't really sure. Retired 4-star general. He says he doesn't see a role there.
Know that NATO per se would be the organization that would lead that. It's not impossible. The problem is here that there aren't that many of the countries that are willing to put their ships at risk. They do have some considerable capability. If it comes to demining, for example, the UK Navy actually has some very valuable assets in that regard. We used to prepare for this and train with them when I was the commander of
Well, they're well trained.
So they have the ability to help and to demine some of these straits.
They just don't want to. Probably because they don't have the money.
The question then becomes, well, look, we don't get as much from that region as everybody else.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair point, too.
Because as the Trump 1.0 administration was trying to do drill, baby, drill, and trying to make us energy independent, and then it's like, yeah, we're getting closer and closer and closer, and then all of a sudden Joe Biden comes along and steals an election, wins an election by 847 million votes, and next thing you know, it's like,
the same with the far-left progressives over in Europe, too.
Are we doing this?
All this climate change bullshit.
Boom, boom. Yeah, and the boom, boom, boom was like the enough. That's it. We're not... I don't know what the enough is. That was weird. Like, enough. I just said it fast, like the boom, boom, boom. And...
All right. Well, anyway, we'll just cut it there. But like France, for instance, they get less than 1% of their oil from the Strait of Hormuz. And I imagine that other countries, probably Germany, UK, probably similar thing, that they're probably not getting all that much out of there. So maybe they're just like, well, we don't really have like a real major financial interest to have to protect the Strait of Hormuz. That should be something that Asia should be doing because they get so much of their oil from the Strait of Hormuz. I don't even know. Although Iran, they proved to Europe, they actually proved to the whole world that they do have ballistic missiles that can reach 4,000 miles, which affects most of Europe. If they were to fire one toward Europe, it would get there. And Europe and the United States didn't believe. I mean, look, probably behind closed doors, I'm sure the United States knew that they had missile capabilities for that range. But now the whole world knows because they fired 2 of them toward a U.S. and a UK base out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. They barely missed it, but those missiles still travel 4,000 miles. So you would think that now they would have a more specific interest to at least engage in something with regard to the Strait of Hormuz. But anyway, whatever. All right, we got another one from Mays. May of 2024, Hakeem Jeffries says that the Ukraine-Russia war has been a strategic success by any definition for America. Well, you know that, of course, coincidental timing when Joe Biden's in office and they had another presidential election looming. He also claims that if Russia wins, Putin won't stop in Ukraine and that we will then have to go to war with Russia. Complete BS. And that wouldn't surprise me. If Democrats kept full power after 24, if Trump didn't get elected, do you think we would be like in a full-on armed conflict with Russia directly? It would not surprise me for a second. I don't think it would probably surprise anybody if we were.
You can't let Ukraine fall, because if it does, then there's a significant likelihood that America will have to get into the conflict. We have no doubt that if Vladimir Putin is successful in Ukraine, he won't stop. There is a
Ukraine is not going to beat Russia, man.
Pro-Putin faction in the Republican Party that does not want to support Ukraine and believes, for some reason, that Russia is not an enemy of the United States of America. And so those that want to convince the American people that
it'd be kind of nice if we were allies.
Has been a failure are promoting Vladimir Putin's propaganda. This has been a strategic success by any definition.
Yeah, and you don't spew propaganda 24/7? Of course he does. All right, Rep. Jeffrey slamming Defense Secretary Hegseth. He was a Fox News host, and now he's the Secretary of Defense? No wonder things are turning out so horrifically. I don't know, should we even give this a play? I don't even know if I really want to entertain freaking Hakeem Jeffries. Team Obama.
Attacking DEI, it's not a serious effort.
When he points his fingers around, that's when you know he's lying.
Merit, that's what they tell you.
And also when he
smirks. They're not trying to celebrate merit, they're trying to elevate mediocrity. Not trying to celebrate merit, they're trying to elevate mediocrity. Here's how we know that's the case. Just look at who they put in charge of the attack on DEI. Pete Hegseth. The most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history. You don't have the standing to lecture anyone. This guy can't organize a two-car
except
funeral.
He served in the military, asshole.
He was a Fox News host, and now he's the Secretary of Defense?
Yeah, he was born a Fox News host. The day he was born, Fox News host.
No wonder things are turning out so horrifically.
Again, brain dead. I know not to overuse the word, but, you know, what else can you say? Anyway, Colin Rugg, Justin, First Lady Melania Trump denies allegations that she met her husband through Jeffrey Epstein. She actually addresses this. The First Lady ripped those accusing her of being friends with Epstein, and they give quotes, or just a brief quote, so we'll just hear it from the First Lady.
First Lady Melania Trump.
With the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania.
Well, I believe there's pictures too.
The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings.
All right. Well, and that's all that they had with regard to that. I'm sure that the full clip is out there and quite easy to find. I'm sure you can even find it right here on YouTube. And anyway, you think that if there was anything whatsoever that they would have found it in the Epstein files. How many? Like 6 million pages worth of Epstein files, which, of course, the conspiracy theories and the whole release the rest of the Epstein files. And let's say that they do end up like literally releasing everything. They probably already released everything. But Democrats they're just always going to say, no, there's more files. There's always going to be more files. And I would lay a lot of the blame of that at the feet of AG Pam Bondi, because she didn't release everything on time. And I know that they had 6 million pages to go through and they had to redact a lot of stuff and everything, although they should have spoken up and said, look, we've got millions of pages. It's not going to take 30 days. It's going to take like 6 months. And then they should have adjusted the law accordingly before President Trump signed it. But anyway, yeah, like if there was anything, like if they had met through Jeffrey Epstein, it would have been in the files, undoubtedly. At least I would assume, because why wouldn't it have been? I mean, they had like literally everything, man. They had like a million freaking emails that Jeffrey Epstein had sent out himself. All right, moving on. Rep. Marlon Stutzman, he says, Trump is right. These low IQ America last podcasters need to remember Trump won in a landslide, and a majority of the American people stand with him and not their obfuscated world view. So this is going to be a long one. Trump, he's putting some conservatives on blast, and we'll go through it. Actually, you know what? I think it might be the text might be a little larger here. Yeah, it looks like it's a little easier to read here. So he says, I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it is wonderful for Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon, because they have one thing in common: low IQs. They're stupid people. They know it, their families know it, and everyone else knows it too. Look at their past. Look at their record. They don't have what it takes, and they never did. They've all been thrown off television, lost their shows, and aren't even invited on TV because nobody cares about them. They're nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity. Now they think they get some clicks because they have third-rate podcasts, but nobody's talking about them, and their views are the opposite of MAGA, or I wouldn't have won the presidential election in a landslide. MAGA agrees with me and just gave CNN a 100% approval rating of Trump, not hand-flailing fools like Tucker Carlson, who couldn't even finish college. He was a broken man when he got fired from Fox, and he's never been the same. Perhaps he should see a good psychiatrist. Or Megyn Kelly, who nastily asked me the now famous only Rosie O'Donnell question, or crazy Candace Owens, who accuses the highly respected First Lady of France of being a man when she is not, and will hopefully win lots of money in the ongoing lawsuit. Actually, to me, the First Lady of France is a far more beautiful woman than Candace. In fact, it's not even close. Or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things and lost his entire fortune, as he should have, for his horrendous attack on the families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims, ridiculously claiming it was a hoax. These so-called pundits are losers, and they always will be. Now fake news CNN, the flailing New York Times, and all of the other radical left news organizations are hailing them and giving them positive press for the first time in their lives. They're not MAGA. They're losers just trying to latch on to MAGA. As president, I could get them on my side anytime I want to, but when they call, I don't return their calls because I'm too busy on world and country affairs. And after a few times, they go nasty, just like Marjorie Trader Brown but I no longer care about that stuff. I only care about doing right for our country. MAGA is about winning and strength and not allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. MAGA is about making America great again, and these people have no idea how to do that, but I do, because the United States is now the hottest country anywhere in the world. President Donald J. Trump. Holy shit. That is wild, man. I didn't even realize that Alex Jones was anti-Trump. I thought he was in the Trump camp all along. Clearly, I haven't been following Alex Jones in a while. I don't really follow any of them. Candace Owens, I never watched her podcast or anything, but I think she was on with the Daily Wire, right, until they had a falling out, and then now I think she's doing her own thing. Yeah, from what I've read, just in passing, again, I don't follow any of them. Obviously, I know who they are, but yeah, I suppose that Candace Owens has been saying some pretty crazy stuff lately. I'm not saying that she's right or wrong, because I don't have all the details with regard to that. But the one that surprised me the most is Alex Jones. I thought Alex Jones was all about Trump. I thought he was the whole time. I thought he was like flying the Trump flags and everything. Look, I don't even know. Maybe something recently happened. It could just be as simple as the Iranian conflict. Maybe that's where the whole falling out happened. I mean, I could definitely imagine that Alex Jones probably felt some kind of way about it when Trump decided to start bombing Iran. But what do I know? All right, ALX, new from President Trump, and it's just an image, President Trump and Dana White. I think it's Dana White with the UFC. I see the octagon in the background. Looks like Dana White. I'm assuming that's exactly who I'm thinking it is. Lightning striking. I don't actually know the exact date when they're supposed to do that. Isn't that in June, or is that like 4th of July? Or they're not going to do that on the 4th of July, are they? I know it's all part of the whole America 250 celebration this summer. All right, so it's going to be on June 14th of 2026. The event will take place on the South Lawn of the White House in Washington, D.C., starting at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And you know what? My local movie theater, they show all the UFC, the pay-per-views. I might actually go out there and watch that. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I'll just have to see whatever I'm doing that day. But anyway, I'm actually, who's headlining that? Did it even say that? I didn't even have a look. Yeah, it does. Yeah, here we go. Main event, Ilya Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. I don't know either one of them. It's been a couple years since I've seen UFC. I watched a lot of them for the longest while, for like 2 or 3 years. I mean, like, consistently, the pay-per-view ones at least. And then Alex Pereira versus Cyril Gane, the UFC interim heavyweight title, live on Paramount Plus and CBS. Association of Boxing Commissions, ABC will serve as independent regulatory advisors to ensure all bouts are officially sanctioned. Well, look, if it's in front, if it's like on federal property, if it's at the White House, shouldn't they be showing this for free? Like, to everybody? Shouldn't we be, like the American people, shouldn't we be allowed to watch this? I don't know. I mean, look, I'm sure that our tax dollars aren't paying for it, because, we'd never hear the end of that from the Democrats if it was. If they were, spending money on it, I'm sure the UFC's, whatever the cost is going to be to set up the whole thing. But anyway, so Stephen Chung says Hunter wouldn't even be able to pass a piss test. Now check this out. Hunter Biden from Trash TMZ. Hunter Biden wants a cage match with Donald Trump's son, Eric, and Don Jr. What, with both of them? What, at the same time? Dude, they would kill you. Well, plus he wouldn't be able to pass a piss test, as Stephen Chung says. So we've got a video clip.
Hey, guys.
Look, anybody who's familiar with Hunter Biden, it goes without saying, Joe Biden's son, he's got quite the mouth on him. So expect a lot of F-bombs. Not sure. I haven't even seen this yet. I would just expect nothing else.
Hunter Biden here. I just got a call from Andrew Callahan. He asked me to come out on the Channel 5 Carnival Tour at the end of the month. I think we start in Phoenix, and then we go to San Diego, and we end in Albuquerque. And I think he's trying to organize a cage match, me versus Eric and Don Jr. I told him I'd do it, 100% in, if he can pull it off. And if he can't, I'm still coming. And I think he's got a lot of other surprises up his sleeve, a lot of fun. And I hope I can see you guys out there. You can get tickets online right now, and I'll see you out on tour.
Okay. All right. Whatever. Channel 5 Carnival and Talent Show. Really? Moderated by Hunter Biden. Special performances and musical guests. From what I've read recently with regard to Hunter Biden, he's what, like $15 or $17 million in debt, and he can't pay his debt, and he's not in the country right now. And I would assume that the only reason he would want to have any kind of cage match like that is to financially benefit him, to see if he can raise enough money to not have to work for anything or never have to want for anything ever again. I highly, highly doubt that that Don Jr., who was the other one? Eric Trump? Yeah, Eric. No way that either of them are just going to even give him the time of day. But speaking of which, speaking of Biden was seen wandering around confused in a coffee shop, and not a single person gave an F that he was even there. So this happened recently. That music. All right, so yeah, wandering around the coffee shop. That young guy, he shook his hand. All right, Bob Kernum says more accurate. Okay, so full disclosure, it's 100% AI, and it's quite convincing. I'll give him that. But this is 100% AI, not misinformation. Okay, YouTube, this is just, it's a fake video. I just came across it. You know, it kind of falls in line with the whole Hunter Biden thing that I came across first, and then I stumbled upon the Joe Biden clip, and then just by coincidence happened to come across this one too, so I figured I'd just throw it in here. Well, there you go. It's only a 6-second clip, and there's some proof that it's AI because it says create your own with Grok. So I'm assuming that Grok created that. All right, let's move on. Libs of TikTok. LOL, Mom Donnie is now saying there won't be free buses this year after spending months campaigning on it. I remember that. Look, I didn't watch like his campaign stuff. I just remember, again in passing, I remember him campaigning on that, telling the people in New York City nobody's gonna have to pay for a bus fare. And isn't that gonna be so nice? And I think he was even talking about waiving fares for the subway too, but apparently that's not happening. At least not the bus fare.
Together, New York, we're going to freeze the... Together, New York, we're going to make buses fast and... Together,
fast
New
and
York,
free.
We're going to deliver universal... Let the words we've spoken together,
bunch of communists,
the dreams we've dreamt together, become the agenda we deliver together.
Well, like, what do they say about communism? Like the pathway is paved with good intentions, or the road to hell is paved with good intentions. This is pretty synonymous with communism. All right, Ted Cruz, like all leftists, they're hypocrites. Communists and socialists live like kings fighting oligarchy, quote unquote oligarchy. This is from Laura Loomer, exclusive pictures. Hassan Piker. A source sent me these photos of Hassan Piker and his assistant wearing pro-socialist clothing while sleeping in first class. Of course they are, because they all do this shit. All right, the seats on a Delta flight today from Detroit, Michigan to LA in California, which Hassan Piker, from what I hear, he lives in a nice ginormous mansion too. This is what we call champagne socialism. Yeah, well, and Hassan Piker was also caught in Cuba about a week or two ago. He went to Cuba as they're plunged in complete darkness because their oil supply has dried up and the entire country is going through just rolling blackouts. He wanted to go there and he participated in like some champagne socialism event. Accidentally dropped my vape stick. And staying at this 5-star hotel that costs hundreds of dollars a night, eating all this fancy food, while everybody else in Cuba is completely living in absolute darkness, while the few who are lucky enough to have a refrigerator, their food's getting spoiled because they don't have freaking electricity. But Hassan Piker, he wants to go down to Cuba and just suck up what little electricity that they have for the entire country, just living up lavishly in a 5-star hotel in freaking Cuba. But anyway, Piker was flying back from Michigan today, where he just campaigned with jihadist Michigan Democrat U.S. Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed, anti-billionaire socialist club. They say from their first class seats. So no video, just a couple images. And I think that's Hassan Piker, isn't it? No, yeah, that's not Hassan Piker. This dude's Hassan Piker, sleeping in first fucking class. How do you like that? With their stupid Democrat socialist hat. You can't make this up. Absolutely laughable. Surprised nobody on the plane recognized him. Like, oh yeah, look, it's Mr. Socialist flying first class. Just like Bernie Sanders. All right, Andy, no, Lewis and Clark College, Lewis and Clark in Portland, Oregon, is hosting Antifa terrorism and radicalization training at a symposium on April 13th through April 15th. This is from Andy No, who is the foremost expert on Antifa, as he does tons and tons of reporting on Antifa. I mean, he knows so much about Antifa. President Trump himself invited him to that roundtable when they were discussing how to handle Antifa with designating them as a terrorist organization. They are directing attendees to hide their faces, and the training on April 14th at the Gregg Pavilion building includes reading claims of responsibility of terrorist attacks from anarchist blogs and how to help comrades escape arrests. And he's even got the link here. Let's check out the link. Let's see what this is all about. This is supposedly the event. Oh, look at that. 404, page not found. Of course they took it down because Andy No reported on it. I'm sure that they probably just moved it. They probably moved it to another location, probably on the same website. But anyway, I'll leave it down in the description. Maybe it's just offline for the moment. Maybe it'll be back up tomorrow. I doubt it, though. Lewis and Clark College is a private liberal arts college, but it does take federal funding. So not so sure if, oh yeah, so he did. He tagged in Secretary Linda McMahon with the Department of Education, and he also tagged in Harmeet Dillon, who is with the Department of Justice. I think for what, civil rights? I think she heads up the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. So here's a couple of images that he shared. Prison Abolition Club presents Wear a Mask, Please. Bad Trouble, 5th Annual Transformative Action and Abolition Symposium. Let's see. How can we critically evaluate the efficacy of our direct action decisions and strategies? How does neoliberal co-optation and monopolization of organizing and resistance affect direct action? How can we fight back against it? What can we learn from risk takers who come before us? How can we gain risk assessment skills? What place does violent direct action have in social justice organizing? They're saying, I don't know. Whatever, man. I guess they're trying to sound smart. Queer Activist Roundtable on Taking Action, Anarchist Communique reading, a panel, Indigenous Education for Abolition, Mapuche Schools, Language Revitalization, Decolonial Futures, Grab Your Comrades Back training with Pugilism Club, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, it looked like they took down the webpage, but I highly doubt that they canceled the event. I mean, you know that's happening because they're just going to wear a mask. So that way nobody can identify them. Oh, but ICE, but they have to take off their masks. They're not allowed to wear their masks. But of course, Antifa, they could wear masks all day long and sunglasses and walk around with their freaking umbrellas. All right. Brianna Morello, horrifying news. A man claiming to be transgender who was convicted of the brutal murder of an infant has been released on parole 30 years early. Jonathan Richardson was found guilty in 2002 in the death of his 11-month-old stepdaughter. The child died while in his care with her mother at work. The DA explained that the county prosecutor's office was not made aware of the IDOC's decision, but rather Richardson had been spotted by a local who recognized him. After serving less than half of his original 55-year sentence, Richardson was released quietly in late December of 2025. It is unclear why Richardson was released early. Did they even notify the family of the victims to show up to his parole hearing? It sounds like they didn't even inform them. They just quietly just released him. Yep, you're out. You can go. Real winner they got there. That's out on the streets now. No thanks to these psychopaths that are running the justice system. Like wherever the hell this is. Did they say where this was? I don't think they even said where this was. Let's see, DA, IDOC. Oh, wow. It's in Indiana. I'm a bit surprised about that. Indiana's a red state. I'm surprised that they let that fly. Governor Mike Braun. Legislation was authored by... Okay, so whatever. They're going into other things, but I'll repost this if you want to read all that language. If you happen to be living in Indiana and you had no idea that was happening, yeah, that happened. All right, Eric Doherty, LMAO, leftist Canadian official, is getting destroyed after whining about protecting MMIWG2 SLGBTQQIA plus people. Why is there number 2 there? It's gone from a group of people to a password you have to set for a banking app. Yeah, it does. It kind of does sound like that. Like where's the @ symbol? Where's the hashtag? Or like a $sign? Yeah, take out the S and put a $sign there, just to make it a little more extra secure. It's the Wi-Fi that comes preset on the router.
They provided $0 to deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA+.
Oh my God, dude, she's got it memorized.
This is abhorrent.
Guess I'll give her that.
It's real.
It's amazing.
It's real.
That's where we are now.
Yeah.
I mean, so I didn't even know.
Well, look, I didn't know that there was a second Q. I knew the LGBTQIA+. I knew that part. I didn't know that there was a second Q. I don't know when the hell they added the second Q, but I was on the up and up all the way up to that point, the LGBTQIA. And I thought there was another A. I thought it was LGBTQIAA+. Plus.
Gone that far. You know, you used to be able to say, oh, you know, they're talking about the alphabet groups when it was just good old LGBT. And then they added the Q, and now there's even like symbols and numbers in there. It's gone from being like a group to now it's like a password you have to set for your banking app, where it's like you have to have a number, it's got to have a capital letter, you need to have a character, so it's got the plus there at the end for that.
It's the Wi-Fi password that comes pre-programmed on the router.
There it is.
But this is what the communist left reduces people to. You're just a letter recited from a stage by somebody who's better connected to the government than you are.
Yep, sowing the seeds of confusion, just trying to confuse everybody into not even knowing what's up or down, what the freaking color of the sky is anymore. And they're just going to keep adding to it. Like, what was that? It was probably almost 10 years ago at this point where they said there were 72 genders. And then they essentially took away the 72 and said, well, there's an unlimited number of genders. You can be anything you want, no matter what. So are they going to eventually consolidate this down to something that's more easily recognizable or something that the average person can actually use? I somehow doubt it. Probably not anytime soon. If anything, they're just going to keep adding more and more to it. All right. Libs of TikTok. Democrat New Jersey councilman admits to child pee charges. Jeffrey Grossman, a Democrat, a former city councilman of Tenafly, New Jersey, pleaded guilty along with his son, Stephen, to possessing over 1,000 images of child pee. Due to a plea deal, both men are facing only 3 to 4 years in prison. Look, if they don't have any criminal record, I mean, I'm going back to the whole like Chris Hansen to Catch a Predator days. That sounds about on par with what they get. But look, they should be holding him to a much higher standard, for one, because he was an elected representative, but also he's got his son involved. His own son is involved in this. So, yeah, I mean, the father at least should be spending quite a lot of time behind bars. I don't know how old his son is, but he sure as shit looks over 18. All right, Colin Rugg, new footage shows the aftermath of the Ontario, California fire. So if you've been watching my show, at least for this week, I did show the blaze that happened. What was that was it on Monday or Tuesday? It was earlier this week. So check this out. A 29-year-old Chamal Abdul Karim was allegedly upset about his pay, so he decided to burn the whole warehouse down. He was a disgruntled employee, and he wiped out a 1.2 million square foot tissue paper warehouse. The warehouse served the tissue paper needs of about 50 million people, according to authorities. So expect the cost of tissue paper to go up substantially, or we're going to probably have to get to the point where we're going to have to start importing friggin' tissue paper. So tissue paper, I don't know if that's like for wrapping gifts or if they're talking like Kleenexes. I'm assuming it's probably the former, maybe, but I honestly don't know. But here's some footage of what it looks like after the fire. Obviously the building that's still smoldering. Good grief. Nothing left. Who was instantly thinking Gangsta's Paradise? Yeah, so anyway, that happened. Disgruntled employee. I'm sure he's going to be going to prison for quite a while. And then he's going to be stuck having to pay that bill for the rest of his life. Probably going to garnish his wages. But I don't know, though. I mean, if he was an illegal immigrant, or I'm sorry, an undocumented American migrant, if he was, of that camp, then they'll probably just waive everything. They'll be like, oh, it's all right. We'll just send you home. That'll be your punishment. And then he can come back in, at some point in time when the Democrats are back in power. All right, Colin Rugg. So new disgruntled employee starts a massive fire at a 1.2 million square foot warehouse in Ontario, California. 29-year-old Chamal Abdul Karim was arrested on arson charges for setting a Kimberly-Clark warehouse on fire. He apparently filmed himself on Instagram setting toilet paper packages in the warehouse on fire. Okay, so it is like that kind of tissue paper. So friggin' toilet paper, Kleenexes, that kind of thing. So what? Because of his retardation, we're now gonna have to pay more for toilet paper. It sounds like it's gonna start getting expensive if they were making enough toilet paper for 50 million Americans. Insanity. You may not pay us enough to effing live, but these bitches dirt cheap. There goes your inventory, he apparently said. All you had to do is pay us enough to live. All you had to do was pay us enough to effing live. Dude, don't work for them. If they don't pay enough, don't work for them. Go work for somebody who will pay you enough. Nobody is enslaving you to that company. You don't have to work there if you're not getting paid enough. Or watch your damn spending. Don't dig yourself into debt. Only buy what you can afford. Whatever. So anyway, all right, so I already read that. So the warehouse is the size of 11 city blocks. In total, 175 firefighters and 20 engines were on the scene trying to put the fire out. No one was injured. And this is ultimately, it's probably on the Democrats as well, because it's just all of this brainwashing, all this insanity. All right, so let's move on. See what else we got. I think I'm getting pretty close to the end at this point. Yeah, it looks like I'm getting down toward the end. Secretary Brooke Rollins, and just a quick reminder, she's the 33rd Secretary of Agriculture. And so, you know what? I'm going to start with this because they're talking about the U.S. Forest Service. There's rumors that the Trump administration is just completely wiping it out, completely dismantling the U.S. Forest Service, as they claim here on headquarters. The Trump administration has announced it plans to dismantle the U.S. Forest Service. All 10 regional offices are set to close, in addition to over 50 research labs. Now, did they link an article? Of course they didn't. But anyway, so this is what Deputy Secretary Stephen Vaden said, and he is America's Farm Families and Rural Communities as the 16th Deputy Secretary of the USDA. And he said, here's the facts on the U.S. Forest Service reorganization. There's a lot of lies spreading on X about the Forest Service's reorganization, so let's cut through the noise with the straight facts. This is about making the U.S. Forest Service more effective at its mission. Nothing more, nothing less. LESS. State directors are not political appointees. These positions will be filled by career federal employees. They exist to put experienced leaders right where the work is happening, with the right span of control over forests and programs. The authority they need to do the job stays exactly the same. Current USFS employees will have the chance to apply as these roles are phased in. The states are our partners. Our commitment to stewardship of national forests and grasslands have not changed one bit. Stronger partnerships with states help us deliver services more effectively on our federal forests. The entire purpose is to improve how we deliver on our mission by getting leadership closer to the ground. Closing some research facilities does not mean we're ending research. These moves do not cut scientists and research programs or shrink our nationwide presence. Research continues across the country. In many cities, the so-called closures are just relocating small teams out of individual buildings into shared, more efficient facilities where scientific collaboration can flourish. Same people, same work, smarter setup. Bottom line, this reorganization is about better mission delivery, efficiency, and keeping our focus on sustainable management of public lands for all Americans. Science stays strong. Leadership stays professional. Don't let the hype distract from the facts. We're here to serve the public and steward these lands for generations to come. That they got such basic facts wrong, such as claiming that career positions would be staffed by political appointees, tells you the value of the rest of the article. They are wasting paper spreading their latest batch of lies. So there you go. And that was the statement from the official Deputy Secretary Stephen Vaden, Deputy Secretary of the USDA. So I would take his word over freaking mainstream news, of course. And Sean Parnell, the department disagrees with the court's ruling. All right, so let's take a look at this first. Bloomberg Law, a Washington federal judge found the Defense Department violated an earlier court order by reinstating restrictions on press access in the Pentagon. So, of course, the left-wing court, the Democrats sitting at the bench, they want the left-wing fake news media to have absolute and complete and total utter access to anywhere in the Pentagon where they can go behind any kind of closed door that they damn well please to get the scoop, to inform the American people. And they wonder why and how things just magically get leaked all the time out of the Pentagon. I'm not pointing any direct fingers. I'm just saying that there could be a correlation there. A Washington federal judge found the Pentagon violated a court order by reinstating restrictions on press access in an opinion that sharply criticized Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for curtailing free speech rights with the nation at war. Senior Judge Paul Friedman of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia said on Thursday that the Trump administration's decision to remove credentialed reporters from the Pentagon in response to his ruling striking down a prior press policy flouts the court's explicit directives and disregards the constitutional principles at the heart of his March order. Well, and if you remember, they didn't kick out people who were members of the press who had previous access to the Pentagon. They came up with a new set of rules for the press to abide by when they go into the Pentagon. And the biggest one was that you can't just go anywhere you damn well please in the Pentagon. There's rules that you have to abide by, and these are the rules. And most of the members of the press who had access into the Pentagon previously, they refused to sign it. And therefore, they essentially just, abandoned their access for the Pentagon moving forward because they didn't want to sign off on, or they didn't want to sign the agreement that they would have to adhere to these new rules. So it wasn't that they just banned them from going into the Pentagon. They just had a new set of rules that they had to follow. They can't just go anywhere they want in the Pentagon anymore. Anyway, in a 20-page opinion, Friedman described a dangerous curtailment of First Amendment rights, made even more so in a time of war. The judge said that he had received dozens of letters and postcards from people across the country. Dozens? Really? Dozens? They're totally not paid actors. Over the past few weeks about what the First Amendment means to them, the court cannot conclude this opinion without noting once again what this case is really about. The attempt by the Secretary of Defense to dictate the information received by the American people, to control the message so that the public hears and sees only what the Secretary and the Trump administration wants them to hear and see. I mean, this is insane. We're talking about the Pentagon here. It's absolutely ridiculous that the press can have access to anywhere in the Pentagon, no matter how top secret it is. Well, they have a First Amendment right, so they should be able to go in there. Well, what about the American people? We've got our First Amendment rights too. Does that mean I get to go and waltz into the Pentagon and go wherever I want? Anyway, Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell in a post on X defended the department's compliance with Friedman's ruling last month and said the government disagrees with the court's ruling and intends to appeal. I think that's what we got anyway. I'll post that if you want to read the rest of it. So yeah, this is from Sean Parnell. The department disagrees with the court's rulings and intends to appeal. The department has at all times complied with the court's order. It reinstated the FPACs of every journalist identified in the order and issued a materially revised policy that addressed every concern the court identified in its March 20th opinion. The department remains committed to press access at the Pentagon while fulfilling its statutory obligation to ensure the safe and secure operation of the Pentagon reservation. And yeah, they're just pissy because they don't have the same access to all the areas of the Pentagon like they did at the point before Trump 2.0 took over. And from Secretary Kennedy, coming soon, the Secretary Kennedy podcast. He's starting his own podcast.
Now, Americans have been told that we should trust the system, but our children are sicker, chronic diseases exploding, and the answers that we've been given aren't working. Many of us have come to the conclusion that government actually lies to us. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS secretary. This podcast is about telling the truth, especially when it's uncomfortable. I'm going to have fearless conversations with critical thinkers, including independent doctors, respected scientists, and leaders in medical innovation and research. I'm going to ask the questions and lift the taboos and expose the hypocrisy and the conflicts and the corruption. We're going to follow the evidence wherever it leads. And we're going to name the names of the forces that obstruct the paths to public health. This isn't going to be about politics. It's about our families, it's about our children, and it's about confronting the spiritual malaise and embracing the truth. If we want a healthy nation, we have to confront the lies that have made us spiritually, morally, and physically sick. The time for half measures is now over. We're launching a new era of radical transparency in government here at HHS. I hope you'll join us in our mission to make America healthy again.
Well, there you go. The Secretary Kennedy podcast. I'll have to check that out. And yeah, and I imagine it just says coming soon. I don't think he released the exact date yet, but I imagine I'll be coming across it. And when I do, I'll share it right here on The Swamp. Of course, I'm not going to watch the entire podcast, but whenever they share the date or where you can watch it, I'll be sure to share it. And from NASA, the Artemis 2 crew had the rare chance to see a solar eclipse from space. This video stitches together views from Orion's solar array wing cameras throughout the eclipse, showing the sun as it disappears behind the moon, revealing a glowing halo around the lunar disk. Hey, let's check this out. This ought to be cool. That's awesome, man. You don't get to see that view of the moon very often. The far side of the moon. Okay. And let's see. Oh, it looks like I placed that in the wrong spot. That was supposed to be the end of the show. All right. Caroline Levitt, taxpayers increasingly blame government fraud for rising cost of living. Okay. Well, that was obviously meant to be up at the very top. But what I'll do, I will link it. I won't go through it because I'm running over on my time. It's actually, I'm running late on uploading this to YouTube. I tried to put this up by 11 o'clock and it's already past 11, but taxpayers increasingly blame the government fraud for rising cost of living. You know what? I might actually just read this tomorrow. You know, it'll be just as relevant tomorrow as it is today. So I'll be sure to add that to my show notes for tomorrow. So, but anyway, that is going to do it for the episode. And if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'll be back tomorrow night as we explore the swamp Monday through Friday and everyone in it, the politicians, the agencies, the bureaucrats, the administration. I also post daily on X, which is where you can peek at the content for tomorrow's episode. And don't forget the video clips from tonight will begin dropping tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern right here on The Swamp. Thank you very much for watching. Always remember to stay positive. God bless the troops and God bless America.